Hi, everyone. Looks like Chef Kate is just kind of getting things started. I was just going to welcome everyone today. Feel free to go. We're doing whatever you are doing, Chef Kate. I'm just going to get started introducing myself and just sort of welcoming everybody. It's 6:30, so I suppose it's okay to get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Fall Harvest Feast demonstration put on by the U Club. Um, Glad you all could join us for sort of dinner and a show. Kind of a nice evening of off cooking for the night. I feel like I've been cooking since February every night, so it's nice to have someone else cook me a meal for this evening, and also with my children. Those of you who have attended the culinary cooking and concepts before, you've probably seen Peggy Crum, who is the Health4U dietitian. Maybe some of you know, but Peggy retired in September, and so I'm the new Peggy, the new dietitian for Health4U. So hopefully I'll be able to do as well as Peggy has done over the years. But my name's Abby Ritchie. This is I've been about 5.5 months into this job. I'm realizing now doing this with the U Club, this is how I have met all of them through Zoom. And that's how I've met all of my coworkers. So this pandemic has been pretty crazy, strange start to the job. And this is kind of just carrying on with it. So but it is a nice evening to have this meal tonight. And Chef John and Chef Kay have planned a really nice menu for us. So I hope you all can kind of just sit back and enjoy. And I know we actually have a couple tonight joining us that is celebrating their 21st wedding anniversary. So congratulations. Oh yeah, okay, so that's Bob and Lori, so they're probably waving on the screen. So congratulations. I think this is a great way to celebrate your anniversary during the pandemic. So anyway, thanks everyone for joining us, and I hope you enjoy.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Congratulations on your anniversary, and thank you for joining us for this cooking demos. I understand how you're feeling about cooking all the time right now as people are at home and we've been eating out a little less or preparing more meals for our family. It'll be that way for Thanksgiving and a little bit farther into the fall and winter. And I think it's still something to get excited about. When you're cooking at home, it kind of becomes the same things over and over again. So what we're going to show you are some new techniques to make it feel fresh and to make it feel more gourmet for you at home. As you sit down at the table with just 4 or 6 people in your family doesn't mean that you can't have a nice gourmet meal and dessert. So the recipe that you got for me was a very simple pumpkin cake. It's can be made with other purees. It's made with pumpkin puree and fall spices. It's very simple. It's all in one. So you're going to do all your wet ingredients, all your dry ingredients. I'm confident that it's a recipe that you can handle without much instruction. So I am going to focus on showing you how to up your game a little bit with some plating ideas, something that you can use for desserts, but you can consider carrying that over into your dinner foods as well, or your appetizers. And it's one way to feel more gourmet as you're sitting down to a smaller meal with people. You should still treat yourself to those fancy, odds and ends that you can put together. And I hope that you will. It's one of the things that makes you feel like a fine dining experience. So with that cake that I gave you, it's a pumpkin cake with cream cheese frosting. As a health benefit, you can also do that with other pureed squash products. So I like acorn squash, it's got a lot of sweetness to it. Pumpkin is great, traditional from the can, but any kind of roasted vegetable puree like that would go well with fall spices like pumpkin spice would be fantastic. I think acorn squash is a really good substitute. You just want to make sure you have not too wet of a puree. It should match about the consistency of canned pumpkin. But that cake can be put together a few different ways as well. I did it for you to sheet cake the way the recipe
Jerry.
is. Here, you can put it together in a liquor cake. You can make it into your with something that is a little daunting for some people, and that's how to make a couple of designs. Lean over the table so we can get as best as possible, I think. And would you mind something that I can roll this down like this? Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you. All right. So everybody's seen these piping bags. Everybody's seen a lot of these demos, but I'm going to give you a few tricks for how you can actually accomplish it. So I'm sure everybody has some of those piping tips kicking around in your baking cupboard. They don't have to be the size of this big star. We use this a lot. It's what I use on this cake. But everybody's got some tips around their house. You can use a Ziploc bag as long as it's strong enough. In the corner of the bag, you don't have to have a piping bag, but it is available from the grocery store. It's something that you can get easily if you're doing grocery drop-off, delivery kind of things, which is a really prudent way to stay safe this season. So working with what you have at home, you can do this with the cream cheese frosting recipe that I gave you. If you decide you want to pipe with it and try and decorate a cake, I recommend doubling the icing amount, just because when you're piping, you're going to have some more height. You might be using some more of it. So this is filled with whipped cream. It's a really great thing to practice. And whether you're doing pie or cake or mashed potatoes, you can use a piping bag. So this one's filled with whipped cream, and I'm going to show you a couple things that make it much easier for you to work with a piping bag. And one of those things is the angle. So you have a direct 90-degree, and you have your 45, and those are going to be your two most common angles. So if you imagine, and I'll try and hold this board up a little bit so you can see, if you're coming at it straight down from the board, you're still going to get a pretty line. You're just going to drag through your piping a little bit. Your goal is to usually keep it on about a 45 and let it fall from the piping bag just a little bit. So from there, you can make rosettes. You swirl it around just like you would top a cupcake, but small. You can create a spiral to plate with, or you can just start making your own designs. One of the things you want to look for is when you're piping to let the cream, icing, whatever you're working with fall a little bit from the bag instead of pushing it directly down while you're piping. What we're going to do is use some of these piping techniques to replate this cake and show you a couple things that you can do. So here's an empty plate. This is a type of caramel that just comes in a squeeze bottle. You can get it from the store, but there's lots of different kinds. You could similarly put it into any squeezy thing you have. You can go and do something very rustic, whether you're just drizzling it all over. Think about it as something that goes under your dessert or next to your dessert or on your dinner or an appetizer. It's usually best to put your sauce down first when you're doing a dessert. That way, not only does it help your dessert stick down, but you get some design on both sides if you choose. So really simply, some of the things you can do, you can see just using it just like that piping, you can create some different designs. Sometimes you just want to make a pool of your sauce to set something in. You can use, these are some candied walnuts, but you can use anything you have around the house. The cake that I gave you has some nutmeg sprinkled on top. That's great for the aroma when you're sitting down to a meal, to have something on there that brings that taste forward with the smell. I like nutmeg. You can use cinnamon. So these are some candied walnuts, but you could use nuts you had around the house, just sprinkle on some seasoning, whatever sounds good. But you can do as simple as a little dollop on the plate and a little bit of something on top. You can do just a general kind of rustic swirl and sprinkle a little bit of your crumbly topping around. And then you can see as you put that cake on there, you're going to get a different kind of look. All right, so we're going to plate one to plate our cake. You guys got in your box one of these. It's a type of tuile cookie that is like a wafer cookie. You probably have seen them in the store. You can use the Purine brand or other things like that. There's a lot of really interesting things you can use to garnish your plate. I recommend just taking a look around you. You'll find some things, whether it be sweet or savory. So for this one, I'm going to plate this piece of cake. You don't always have to go center. A lot of times it's nice to go off to the side, make it asymmetrical. You can use any shape of plate. Even if your dessert is this big, you can use a big plate. It's part of the fancy presentation of something, especially if you're setting down this dessert that you worked hard on and you want your family to really get that wow factor. You can still have those photo moments even at home. So for this one, I'm going to do a a design right here going down the side of the plate, and actually see if I can show you that a little bit better. Hopefully you can see. Kind of runs a little bit. And I'm going to move this cake over. I do like to plate off center. I think that it gives you something to look at. You can knock the cake over to eat it, but don't be afraid of blank space on your plate. Just like a drawing or any kind of art, you could end up with that blank space and it just draws more attention to your dessert. So using the piping, I'm going to go through, and sometimes it's nice to line down the side of the dessert or just have a dollop. I'm going to give it a high rosette so that I can lay this wafer cookie onto the side. So right here, I'm going to do a very basic rosette to show you. So you're coming, this is 90 degrees straight down, and just let it fall, give it a little swirl, and lift up. So that's kind of a lot of cream, but I'll put a little bit of this candied walnuts off to the side by my sauce. You see this a lot actually in fancy desserts, having something kind of crumbled, sprinkled around. It's a little Jackson Pollock. You know, you can get kind of messy on there and it still looks great. And go ahead and lay this cookie over. And you got something really simple but elegant for your friends or family that you're going to be dining with at home. And this is something that crosses over into, like I said, your appetizers or your dinner. You can take a look at the techniques that Chef John is going to show you in a moment, and think about some of the other things you have around your home that you might want to plate with, or whether it be just dessert or your dinner. There's a lot you can do, and I encourage you to try. Work on some plating, take some pictures, and I bet you when you post them, your friends won't even know that that's something you plated. They'll think you went to a fancy restaurant. So thank you for joining us. Congratulations again to the people celebrating their anniversary. And next up is going to be Chef John, and he's got some great recipes to show you. I'm sure you're enjoying them right now. And hopefully you haven't eaten your cake as the beginning of your meal, but if you have, enjoy.
Doesn't eat dessert first.
Everybody eats dessert first. Let me get out of your way.
All right, now it's time to hurt ourselves and cut some fingers off or something, right? Start some fires and have some fun. Well, welcome to another version of virtual Health4U food and all these classes we're doing now. It's been an interesting time for us too. We're trying to get through it as well. So this is one of those items that we're trying to work on. So today we can't show you everything, of course, but we're gonna talk about all of it. Yes, probably most of you have eaten it already, I would think. Eat the hot food while it's hot. Maybe you had dessert first, but we thought we'd let Kate go first so she's not waiting on me to talk for a half hour for her 10 to 15 minutes of fame, you know. But we're going to talk about the salad first, of course. That's what normally you get served at a restaurant first. I like to have my salad later, but everybody has restaurants always get it out of the way. If you go to another country, they serve it to you later, or they don't even give you a salad. So the harvest salad was just a fall version of something using the apples and things of that nature that are seasonal for this time of year. And that's, of course, what all this class was based on, was the fall harvest. We've all had lots of squashes now and apples and different things, cider and donuts and all those yummy things, apple pies and so on. But the harvest salad, again, is just fresh things that are really easy to do. Nowadays as well, you can find different dressings in the store, even though I did give you a recipe for apple vinaigrette. You know, the romaine lettuce to start with on that salad. Of course, we have that. You can buy it chopped. You can cut it fresh. Love romaine hearts, freshly cut, the best way to go. I have leafy greens. Those are just the mixed greens you can get with spinach and kale and green leaf lettuce and purple leaf lettuce and all the different things they have now, spinach and so on. There's so many things out there. They all come in packages together. And then the apples, you know, I like a lovely, light, nice, crisp apple. So Fuji's, Honeycrisp are probably my favorite. Galas when they're, well, I think those were Gala apples actually, because right now we can't get everything here as well. You have a better chance of going to Uncle John's or any other Old Country Mill or something to get the apples that they have. So dicing those up, of course, you can dice those up ahead of time. Maybe put a little shot of lemon juice or a little fresh squeezed lemon in the container with it to keep it from browning. The cheddar cheese, I love white cheddar cheese. We use a nice sharp white cheddar cheese. Of course, you can use any cheddar cheese. You can use Gruyere cheese. There's a lot of Asiagos, even Parmesan would work for it. But love white cheddar. And then candied walnuts. I put a little thing on there that you'd really just have to toss them in honey, and I add a little cinnamon to it. We've added nutmeg before. You can even add some brown sugar to it, toss them in a bowl, put them on a sheet tray with either parchment paper or spray it or something because they will stick. And just bake it for 10 to 15 minutes at about 350 degrees. Sometimes a little longer. Everybody's oven's a little different. You can make those ahead of time. You really don't want to put the hot nuts onto a salad, of course. It'll wilt the greens. And then the apple vinaigrette. Doesn't have to be apple vinaigrette, but that's what I thought I'd go with. So we started with the apples that you want to throw into it. Of course, there's a version where you can just reduce apple cider, and that could be your juice. I put apple juice on it, but I got the apple, the shallot, the brown sugar, Dijon mustard, white wine vinegar, apple juice, and then the olive oil, lemon juice, and salt and pepper, of course. Those just all kind of go together, and it works. Apple cider can be a substitute. It works great. We use apple cider in lots of things. In fact, on our menu that we stopped using because we closed was an apple cider maple syrup production. So kind of similar to what I gave you, but I did the bourbon. But that works really well. So one of those things, you just put that in a blender, and you can refrigerate that. It lasts for, I put on there 2 weeks, maybe even longer sometimes. But one of those dressings, you can make a decent sized batch. You can make it now for Thanksgiving, and it's out of the way. That's always a nice thing to get out of the way. Simple things like that. So, a simple recipe for a vinaigrette. All those things go in pretty much a normal vinaigrette, minus maybe the apples and apple juice. The rest of it's a pretty similar standard, and the brown sugar, standard vinaigrette dressing recipe. Probably even nowadays, and I don't look that often because I do make dressing at even home, that you can buy apple vinaigrette or something similar to that at the store. We can here for ourselves as well, but we kind of made a different version for us as well that we use. But it's a very simple salad, very yummy, a little different than just a garden salad with cucumbers, tomatoes, carrots, and ranch dressing. Of course, everybody loves that. It's the #1 dressing in America, but something different is always fun. All right, and that's this time of year, something you can do for Thanksgiving, okay? So things that I always talk about in these classes is using a sharp knife, all right? One of the key things in a kitchen is having a sharp knife. If you don't have, and these are not good knives, we go through them, so if we actually drop them on the floor, we don't care. We have a knife company that comes and take them from us, but buying a good quality knife is always the best thing to have. And then to sharpen it, there's a sharpening steel that's kind of a flat version, if you can see, instead of the round. But you just want to hold it on a slight angle and keep going back and forth. You don't have to go fast. I mean, yes, I can go fast, but slower than you don't hurt yourself, all right? And that's a nice way to just put a new edge on it. If you really need to sharpen it, I'll say that Cutco in Okemos does it. It used to be the Knife Trader by Frandro would sharpen your knife and put a whole new edge on it. This is just honing it to keep it sharp for a while. Holding the knife, you don't need to hold it like this. We hold it with our finger right here, all right, and then grip it like this. You got to watch your finger, make sure it doesn't go underneath the bottom there. And that way you get a nice sturdy grip on it. Instead of here, you're a little loose, a little uncomfortable, all right? So a nice sturdy grip on it right there works great. And then bending your fingers in, all right? Ladies, you all have got fingernails. I don't cut mine too short. That way I can grip food too. That way when I do it, I keep my fingers and we just kind of have the knife go on the edge of our knuckle like that, all right? So we're going to start with, I'm going to skip ahead and, actually, no, I can do the acorn squash. I got it right here. So you can't bake an acorn squash out here, so we'll just show you how to cut it in half or to quarter it, all that without hurting yourself, all right? Very simple. Just kind of put it in there. Pound it through to keep your hand out of the way, all right? And then just to do little thirds, I don't want to give everybody too much, just cutting those down like that, all right? keeping your fingers out of the way because an acorn squash can move on you a little bit. One thing you can do with all of these is maybe just take a little edge off of it right in the middle, and you can flatten it so it actually stays flat even on the plate too. All right, it's a nice thing to do instead of the squash wobbling a little bit, going back and forth like that. You cut a little edge on it, it'll lay flat. All right, very simple thing to do. And then we just use an ice cream scoop or a scooper and just scoop it out like that to get all the seeds out. Do that for all of them, of course, unless you're just doing it for one. And you're going to have a lot of squash left over, I'll say that. All right, scoop all those out, and then you're ready to go. Now, to cooking the squash, we usually put it in a baking pan with some water. I think that's what I put on here for you, right? Yep, and a ½ inch of water, and just put it in the oven. Now, you can steam it on a stove. If you have a steamer attachment to one of your pots, you can actually steam it. Works great. We do sometimes throw it in our steamer. But if you're baking it and you just want to steam it that way, it can go in the oven simply. Of course, baking the squash, you can add butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg to it to give it the massive flavor that a lot of people like just to eat the squash plain. But since we're adding a risotto to it that has flavor, we didn't really go that route. All right. Now, for the risotto, cooking that, I'll give you a different method than maybe what you read on your bag of risotto that you bought at the store. All right. Those method would have the traditional way, which is always fabulous. Definitely, I would always make it that way at home too if I was doing just a risotto dish. To saute the onions in olive oil, add the risotto, add some garlic, and slowly add in your chicken stock. Just slowly cook it and keep stirring it. Well, you can boil risotto like pasta to pre-cook it and get ahead. It works very well. It doesn't have the same flavor, but we're going to add the flavor as we cook it when we get to that point. So you can boil the pasta naturally, probably, I think I said for like 10, 15 minutes. You can take a little piece out. You don't want to cook it all the way because you're going to cook it again. So you want it to have a little firmness to it. You don't want to be all fluffed up like rice should be. You want it to be a little firm. All right, and you can take it off and you can run water over it, kind of like you would to chill pasta, or put it in an ice bath to cool it down. And that way, it's all ready to go. Another one of those things that can't be done ahead of time when you have guests over, to keep it simple for yourself. And that's kind of one of my main things, is to not be in the kitchen the whole time when I have people over. I want to have things ready to go. Maybe I have to cook it, but it's simple to do when it's time to eat. All right, so we boiled our pasta or risotto, cooled it down. We've got the squash is already done. So now we're gonna, here we go, saute pan here. Cook some risotto for you without burning the plates down here. All right. Simple to do. I've got all my ingredients over here in the back counter. We're going to have a little olive oil in a saute pan. These are nice non-stick pans. You see the black bottom on it. These work great. I would recommend getting those. As much as I'm an old school kind of chef and love my classic Calphalon pan without the non-stick bottom that are nicely sealed. I've been using them for years. They'll last forever. I definitely have some non-stick pans at home. It's the best way to go. All right. I've already got my diced root vegetables that we diced up. Parsnips, rutabagas, carrots, sweet potatoes, beets. I do prefer golden beets because, as you noticed, your risotto was pink, more like Valentine's Day. So that's definitely a great thing to do for a risotto for Valentine's Day. So think ahead for that, is adding beets to it. The natural flavor, the color of those just make everything beautiful pink. I wanted to get golden beets to keep it the other color of the others, but they didn't have them in Myers when I was going there. What are you going to do? I've been shopping at Myers a lot lately for here since we're not quite as busy. All right, so we've got the squashes done. Vegetables are ready. We did pre-cook our root vegetables a little bit on the steamer, kind of because we had to. Doing such a large amount, we couldn't cook them all in the saute pan like that. And so we're going to add these to the olive oil first, just to get them warmed up a little bit. All right, and then we'll add our risotto here in a little bit. Then my cream and Parmesan cheese, and of course a little bit of salt and pepper. All right, and we're going to saute these real quick. I know you can't see all this. It's kind of the hard part. We don't have 3 cameras up here or somebody behind me doing it. We don't have all the technology we'd like to have right now with this all going on. MSU is shut down. Our partners in crime next door are not here to help us. What are we going to do? All right, so we're sauteing these lightly. As you can tell, I'm moving them around in the saute pan, but keeping it on the burner as much as possible. All right, and after that cooks for a couple minutes, make sure I follow my recipe. I always have my way to do it, but then I wrote it all down for you, and it's a little different than cooking it for 20 to 100 people. I don't usually cook for 4 or 6 or whatever we do for these classes. All right, so now I'm going to add the risotto in. You hear it popping just a little bit. I'll let that simmer, add a little salt and pepper to it. This is kosher salt and black pepper that we freshly ground. We love using kosher salt here. We still, of course, use regular table salt. But kosher salt is wonderful, a little different flavor, a little bigger flavor. Sometimes you don't need to add as much, all right? So you hear that popping, it's warming up. And then we're going to add some cream to it. You can add milk to it, or even, we've been making many vegan things, dishes for guests and members, that you could just add some vegetable stock to it. You can buy vegetable base, chicken base, beef base, all of those, all right? And we've been doing a lot of that. So instead of adding cream, of course, dairy doesn't work, and then the cheese, unless you buy vegan cheese, and you can. You can add many other things to it for an entree, for a vegan as well. We've even got vegan chorizo and Italian sausage that we use once in a while on a dish. But this is just about ready. Now, if it's something you did ahead of time and you maybe just had to add a little bit of water to it to thin it out a little bit, that is just fine. Sometimes the heavy cream can be a bit much. So a little bit of water can go a long way as well to not have it so creamy or heavy or things of that nature, okay? Now, if I had a rubber spatula, which I did somewhere. Oh, I moved it right there. I have a non-stick melting rubber spatula that I can use on this. You see the red handle? And then there's the white handled one. Of course, this will melt when it gets hot. The red handled one do not melt. They would melt if you put them on a burner. That way I can stir it this way if it sticks a little bit, all right? So basically, this is ready, all right? It doesn't take that long, but my vegetables were pre-cooked. The root vegetables were pre-cooked, so it does not take as long. You can pre-cook those root vegetables, okay? So there's your risotto. I would pour it on my acorn squash. We didn't do that for your dish in your box because we couldn't fit it all in there, so we had to kind of alter the way we package it. All the to-go boxes limit what you can do a little bit. We didn't want too many flavors mixing together, so we did put the risotto separate. But if you plated it up, you'd have your vegetables, then your risotto over the acorn squash, and the chicken off to the side, okay? So there's that dish. All right. So we will move on here. So the chicken thighs is another one that, of course, I don't have an oven behind me. I'm not Martha Stewart or Rachel Ray or any of those that have ovens under here, ovens behind me, and stoves and everything. We just have big ones in back. So can't show you everything with that dish. When we seasoned that chicken for you, we did add a little more than what we put on the recipe because I kept it simple with salt and pepper. We added a little Southwest seasoning. So it's kind of a chili powder, cayenne, garlic, a little onion, just to give it a little color on it. Otherwise, chicken is very white and very boring. So it could be, you could even add salt and pepper, paprika on it, just a little bit, gives it a little color. But any of those spices that I just said, chili powder, you can even add cumin, cayenne pepper, garlic, onion, work very well for it. So something you can add to it. But in the recipe, I kept it fairly simple. Sometimes too much can be too much. All right. But seasoning the chicken, you can either sprinkle it on top, rub it into it. You could glaze it with some olive oil on top if you wanted. You don't have to. You can just sprinkle it on. I kept it very simple at that point. But now I need my little pot here. I'm going to have to get this hot. We're going to show you how we create fire in the kitchen. Always fun. I put that on there that once you're making the bourbon reduction, it will flame up on you. If it doesn't, you can make it flame to start the flame and not be worried that, oh my gosh, it's going to pop up at you at some point. Something to worry about. We've all done that where we're looking over a pot. Oh God, there goes fire right in your face. Burn your eyebrows, maybe some nose hairs, or if you got a beard, definitely going to singe that off a little bit. All right, but we put the bourbon in, And it can be any bourbon. You can use expensive stuff if you want, if that's what you're drinking at home, or a slightly cheaper model. There's lots of them out there, of course. That you put that in the pot, get that reducing a little bit first, and then we'll add our syrup, whether it's log cabin, maple syrup, Mrs. Butterworth, whatever you want to use. All right. But to start the fire, I can do that and just tip it lightly, and there we go. All right. So you see that in your picture. Boy, it comes pretty good on the camera. That's cool. Put your hand over it. It's a little bit of fun, you know, that kind of thing. It wasn't 3D. That was my hand. So anyway, what are you laughing at, Phyllis?
That makes me nervous too, John.
We're gonna have fun in the kitchen. Come on, it's fun. Any cook loves fire. I think any human really enjoys fire anyway. It keeps us warm. But if you're in the kitchen, you enjoy fire, and that's part of it. You can blow it out a little bit. All right, so now we're gonna add this syrup, and a pretty good amount. How much should I put on there? Yep, about a half a cup to 2 cups of bourbon. So there we go, something of that nature. And reduce it lightly. It does not take very long. For the batch I did for you all, I did use a little bit of a cornstarch slurry because it was a much larger batch. We had 2 squeeze bottles like this full. So I did make a slurry, which is just a little bit of cornstarch and cold water that you mix, and that's something you would use, you know, for gravy or making au jus or something of that nature. So I did add a little bit to that, but this does not take very long because you want the bourbon flavor, you want the maple syrup. So I think I probably just put on there, like reduce it by half, heat for a couple minutes. Yep, something like that. Pretty quick. Doesn't take very long. It's not a huge batch. My batch in the kitchen probably took a good 10 to 15 minutes because I used a whole bottle of booze and about that much of syrup. So quite a good amount. All right, so this is just about done already. Oh, yes. Smells good. Yeah, it smells good over there, doesn't it? We don't have the ventilation system here, so it definitely has a good smell to it. All right, so that is that sauce. Very simple. All right, and this is definitely something you can make ahead of time again. And we have it in a squeeze bottle ready to go, what we did tonight for you. Something you can put in the refrigerator. Just warm it up quickly in the microwave. Doesn't have to go back in a pot after you do it. All right, so very simple, very easy, but lots of cool flavor. Another thing to add to this could be apple cider. It could be an apple cider bourbon maple sauce. Fantastic. So think of that if you have extra apple cider. I had about a half a gallon of cider I wasn't going to use, and I reduced the whole half a gallon down to less than a cup. So I got a great cider flavor out of that I just put in the refrigerator, that instead of throwing the cider out another week later, I actually have a sauce I can use for pork chops or put it over chicken or even fish. Maybe not steak so much, but any of those things would be great with it. So I'd recommend doing that. Unless it's a cider that's, you know, pasteurized and it does last a little longer, but you can still do it with that because that's the cider we would use here. But my cider was Uncle John's because I love going there and they have the best cider. Not pasteurized goes bad quickly, so got to use it somewhere. And plus, it's way expensive, so you've got to use it up. And boy, you just wasted a lot of money on apple cider. Okay, so now it's just like a nice syrupy kind of flavor that would be great on a dish that I might actually eat later. We'll see. Some of this food's going to be just sitting around. All right, so now we're going to cut some vegetables. So I'm going to show you how to do that a little bit carefully. All right, so as you can see, I'm going to put the knife down. All right, and I'm going to cut like this and just kind of go through it. I got to hold it this way, so I'll kind of do it that way for you a little bit. I'm going to cut each end off. And we gave you a chunky version of the squash. And see, I hold my hands that way. Now I'm going to hold them this way and kind of guide the knife with my knuckles. All right. And we gave a chunky form, so we cut nice chunks instead of doing slices or something of that nature. But you see, as I do it, the knife is guided along by my knuckles, so I can't cut my fingertips off. Having done that before in years gone by, of course. It happened on every finger on my hand in the first 10 years I worked here. Hasn't happened in a while, all right? So again, I can just do that. I can cut them on a slight angle here. But nice chunks last longer. If I had sliced it for you, that zucchini and squash would have been so mushy and not good for you, because I know my whole process of making menus now, delivery, is how do I keep it fresh for you for the 10, 20 minutes, half hour that you go home. So now I'm quartering up a red pepper, and we use red, yellow, and orange peppers for you. Taking the stems out, or the white part, the part that makes you, you know, not feel so good. Get a little gassy. All right. Get the seeds out there. And we did just do chunky of that as well for you. Right, you know, like these I could strip a little bit, some chunks. All right, just guide it along a little bit there. All right, but see that sharp knife goes through so easy that I'm not going to hurt myself at all. I mean, you can miss, don't get me wrong. It can be bad. But a sharp knife is the safest thing in the kitchen. A dull knife is going to catch on something like kind of like this. If I don't go through, it might fall off or the other way and catch my finger. And then I'm going to trim the edges off. You don't really want to cut your fingernails that way. It's best to use nail clippers, not knives. It hurts. And it lasts a while. I'm the resident doctor around here probably because I've hurt myself the most in so many ways that everybody comes to me, should I go get stitches or not? Well, I usually am pretty accurate. I'll say that. So getting my saute pan hot here. We're going to add some more olive oil. We've got back here. Love the extra virgin olive oil. Has a little bit of flavor. Not the greatest heat content. You don't want to be searing too many really hot things with olive oil. You'd rather use vegetable oil or peanut oil. But if you're just sauteing some nice vegetables or a little bit of chicken, not too hot, olive oil is the best flavor you can get. All right. So we're going to add some zucchini and squash to this now. We can add the mushrooms. And since I cut the peppers a little chunky, they might as well go in at the same time. We'll just add it all. If you cut different vegetables in different shapes and different sizes, you have to kind of think, all right, you know, squashes and things like that take longer to cook. Carrots take longer to cook than onions cook quickly. Mushrooms cook quicker. Celery cooks quicker unless it's just a really fresh celery. Every vegetable has a different way of timing that it cooks. So keep an eye on that as you're doing it, or the way you cut it. I'm always worried about that with stir fries that I've done. Do I put these vegetables in first, and kind of there's a process with put these 3 vegetables in, and then in a couple minutes put these 3 vegetables in. Kind of knowing what vegetables, firm vegetables take longer, soft vegetables not as long. All right? All right, just toss these up again. Of course, you can use a spoon. Easy way to do it. But in the kitchen, we all know how to flip our vegetables up and down and throw omelets in the air and catch them upside down. And then hash browns and all those items. It's kind of fun. Keeps it interesting for us, as long as we don't miss. It's terrible to miss at home. I'm adding some salt and pepper to this now. Terrible to miss at home because then you got to clean up. But in the kitchen here, I usually have utility staff to clean up for me. Not that I want to make a mess for them and they get mad at me. Or burning pans does not work very well. But they can take care of that for us and it helps out. But right now there's only 2 of us in the kitchen and we've got to do the dishes, clean the floor, cook the food, make the salads, do everything. It's a different process. It's something we, of course, did back in April and May. So we reopened. We had a very limited staff. And then it was nice to get everybody back and get going. But we're just not back into it with all the banquets as you all are sitting home. Normally you would have been here enjoying this at a lunch this week, hopefully. We missed that too. We wish you were here. Well, that is most of the food that we're doing. You can hear it sizzling nicely. Other things that we're doing here, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving. I hope you've already bought your turkey, whatever store it's at, because you need it to thaw out, unless you're getting one of those fresh ones. It will take up to a week to thaw out a turkey. You don't want to leave it out, just sitting out for a whole day. That's not very safe. I will recommend, too, not cooking your stuffing inside the turkey because the stuffing won't get hot enough and then you'll dry your turkey out as far as its food safe factor. So put your stuffing in a pan. The flavor of the turkey doesn't make a huge difference. And then, you know, what we do here, too, is we cook all of our turkeys a day ahead of time or 2 days ahead of time if we're really busy. And we take all the meat off of them, but we undercook the turkey a little bit. So it's probably only cooked to about 120, 130 degrees. So in a way, it's kind of medium rare. We let the turkey cool down. We take all the meat off of it. We throw the carcasses in a stock pot to make turkey stock. So we have a much better broth to use to make gravy with some carrots, onion, and celery, just like you would a chicken stock or beef stock. All right, something to think about. But then you have your turkey done, and all you have to do is add a little bit of turkey stock to it on the day of Thanksgiving. Throw it in the oven for maybe an hour to get it hot again, and it won't be dry. It'll be nice and moist because it had stock in there with it. And then you've got all that stock to make a beautiful turkey gravy that'll be the best gravy you've ever had, not something you throw together because you'll still have all the drippings from that day. And you can also use the turkey grease to make your turkey roux. If you use a roux to thicken your vegetables, which normally a roux is just clarified butter and flour, we use turkey grease to actually make our roux to thicken the gravy, and it's the best gravy you'll ever have. And if you ever get a chance to come here for Thanksgiving, and hopefully next year we'll be open again too, or maybe you're getting takeout. I know there's some members on here of the University Club that maybe have had it here before. It is the best gravy you'll ever have for sure, because it's actually 2 days of turkey, and since we buy 40, normally 46 25-pound turkeys, we have a lot of carcasses to make a lot of stock, and it is the best. Can't beat it anywhere. All right. So my veggies are cooked. It did take a little time because those chunky vegetables, but they're smelling really good right now. Of course, you can add some herbs to this if you'd like to add Italian seasoning to it. Always possible, or a little bit of garlic or something is great. All right. And let me think. Is there anything else? Anybody got any questions? We haven't asked questions. Phyllis has a question, and she's live.
I do.
Yeah, I got some questions, if that's all right. So I was wondering, when you do your risotto, would it be okay to use, if you were doing vegan risotto, like the coconut milk or almond milk? Would that have worked well?
We have done, good question, because of course you've seen us do that here. That's cheating. Yes, we've done kind of, one with macadamia nuts and coconut milk and even fresh coconut that's toasted on top of it. Maybe even adding a little spicy puree to it. My gosh, I'm blanking on it, what we use. No. It's like a chili, not chili garlic paste. Oh, we get it at I go shopping for it. Oh my gosh. I'm totally blanking on it. It's like not a chili garlic paste, but something of that nature that we had to give it a little spice to it, kind of Mediterranean spice to it. Really good stuff. Delicious. So yes, we've done coconut milk instead many times to have a creamy version, but still vegan, vegetarian version for all those people. Yes, for sure. I should say all those people. Sorry. I like some of that food too. I just always want to add chicken breast to it or something myself. But
What about your olive oil that you use? Do you sometimes use a lighter olive oil when you're sauteing versus a regular?
I'd say here we just usually use extra virgin olive oil. We do use Fustinis here, so we have garlic olive oil, basil olive oil, and of course I probably got harissa olive oil and Korean chili olive oil, and all. Fustinis has a ton of different olive oils, and a lot of other places do too. So I've used a lot of thyme, rosemary olive oils that are already blended for us. I've made my own a little bit where you cook the herb in the olive oil on a cool temperature, not boiling, just kind of simmered in there and then strain it out. So great thing to do there. So there are different ones. The lighter ones still don't have a very higher heat content to it to really sear things off, but a little less flavor. So if you're not looking for a super rich olive oil, then sometimes those can work better. Otherwise, yes, the standard extra virgin olive oil is the one we use, and I think most everybody uses, are probably the better ones to use overall. So good question, Phyllis. Thanks. It's weird not having people here asking questions. So
go ahead. So weird. Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. So yeah, it is so weird. It's really hard to talk to a screen. So you did an excellent job. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. That is hard to do though. I had a question back when you did the acorn squash. So when I do like a butternut squash at home, I'll warm it up in the microwave a little bit ahead of time to soften it. Is that acorn squash seems a little bit softer? Is that still work? So like I wouldn't have to you chop pretty good with that.
Okay, I have a sharp knife. That helps. Now, acorn and butternut, if they're fresh, are both very hard squashes to cut into. And you can tell, I didn't really want to have my hand near it in case it rolled, just in case. I just got some butternut squash from our farmer, and it's probably about that big. I got like 7 of them. That's all I got in a bushel of butternut squash. It is monstrous. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it being that big. I'll need a quarter of it, these days or something. So they're both very firm. The butternuts, butternut, I think lasts longer if you don't need the whole thing. You can just cut sections of it off and use what you need as you're doing it. And it will last in the refrigerator for probably at least up to a week without cooking it. Of course, you cook it, it'll still last a week or so. But definitely that's when you can just cut chunks off of. Just like an acorn squash, you can cut half of it, use half of it, put the other half in the fridge, and 3 or 4 days later, cook that again. Of course, you can cook the whole thing and reheat it as well, but sometimes that can get a little mushy the second time around, so it depends what you're doing with it. Now, if you were doing like just a butternut squash risotto, which is something we've done here a lot, I probably have done it for a class in time gone by. This was the whole harvest, if you want to say. Love butternut squash risotto, where you can either leave it chunky, kind of like we did, or you can puree it kind of like a mashed potato and overcook it and then make it out of there. Blends in a risotto, gives it a wonderful creamy flavor that really, and I'm not a big squash person myself, but I love butternut squash risotto. One of my favorites.
Yeah, that sounds good too. If I warmed up the acorn squash like the butternut squash in the microwave, though, would it soften it enough for my knife to go through easier?
Probably just a little bit, sure.
A little bit? It's not going to mush it too much?
Otherwise, I'm going to tell you to get a butter knife. But no, to do that a little bit, it's kind of like cutting the corner a little bit, sure, and making it a touch easier for it to go through. But yes, I was, slamming it. And this isn't even a table. I was a little worried that when I did that, it's going to shake. Hopefully a kitchen counter is pretty sturdy and your cutting board doesn't wobble or anything like that. But it will help. Yes. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you to get a good knife, though. So it's something
I know. I actually do. I just got a good knife. But my second question was about the reduction. And you said, and someone just had a comment about the apple cider vinegar. He said the unpasteurized cider is so much tastier to drink. But does it really make a difference when you're using it in your sauce?
No, not so much. No. But it was one of those that it costs about $3 or $4 more a gallon that I wasn't going to waste it. I'll put it that way. So reducing it, I just reduced it down to, like I said, probably almost a container this size, which is probably like about 5 ounces from a half a gallon.
How long does that take?
It probably took about 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I kept checking it because I didn't want to burn my pot. That would be a mess. So I kept setting a timer to come back, and so I didn't, watching TV, and all of a sudden I forget about it because the house smells great already. And then if I waited too long, it won't smell very good. So yeah, it did take a while. And then I did turn it down from kind of a high temperature to a lower temperature as it got down towards the kind of syrupy kind of look to it to make sure it didn't cook down too fast because it was bubbling. And then at that point, you could burn it. And oh man, my dishwashers would hate me. You're going to hate yourself. Your husband's going to hate you. I got to clean it for you. And yeah, not so good. So, but no, it really doesn't make a difference as far as the cider reduction. It was more of I can't throw this cider away. It costs too darn much.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Are there any other questions? Anybody else? Feel free to either type it in or go ahead and talk. I did want to say that the recipes, John was talking a little bit about the recipes that the U Club does. I think we have a lot of your recipes on the Health4U website. So on the bottom of your handout, the Health4U link is there. And actually the roast turkey that you have done, I think the recipe is on there. And actually the instructions that you just talked about cooking ahead are on there as well.
So the day of when you've got, hopefully this year you're doing 10 or less at home. Not going to promote a big party. But if you did have, next year, hopefully we can all get back to it. You got 15 people over. And you've got a big turkey, and you got to do a lot of potatoes, which you have to do the potatoes fresh. But you can make the stuffing on Wednesday. You can cook your turkey Wednesday. Get some stock going. You can cut up your sweet potatoes or whatever you're doing for a root vegetable medley. All those things can be done ahead of time. And it just makes the day of, you got to clean your house. You got to set the dishes out. You still have so much to do to get everybody over. And who's making the booze, who's got the punch going, whatever. And then the kids are over and, oh my God, they're everywhere. It just makes it so much easier to have it done. Yeah, I think last year we did the shopping list. That's right. It was a shopping list class. So yeah, that should all be on there. Definitely feel free to use that. Go buy your turkey like tomorrow, all right, before they're too late. They're either out or it's just way frozen. You can run it under cold water for a while. Put it in a big pot and let it run under water, or in your sink or something without overflowing your sink. Works well, but get it soon. Don't wait. People wait and buy it on Tuesday. You're in trouble. It's going to be tough. All right. Any other questions? Thanks, Abby. This was great. It was actually fun to do. Different, of course. I love having the people here. It's much more fun looking at everybody eye to eye. But this was still good. I'm glad we're doing these, and hopefully we'll get back to people here. If not, we'll look at doing another one probably in first of the year or February, March or somewhere. Okay. So
yeah, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and anyone else who wants the handout at the bottom again is the Health4U link, and that has the recipes. Well, not the ones from today yet, but the ones from previous years with the turkey and the shopping list you talked about and all of that. That's all on that website, so you can definitely check it out. But
I mean,
yeah, thanks for doing this.
30, 40 classes for you all, so there should be lots of recipes on there. Or your ex-leader, we gotta talk to her.
I know she did a lot of work. I'm just kind of coming in right behind all of her work, so I'm so grateful for it.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
You're welcome.